Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, where each episode we bring you a fresh and insightful interview featuring one of the film industry's top directors, conducted by one of their peers. Take a second to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode takes us behind the scenes of director Lynn Shelton's new drama, Outside In. The film follows Chris, a 38-year-old ex-con who is finally granted parole after 20 years behind bars, largely due to the tireless advocacy and support of his high school teacher, Carol. After the two are reunited, Carol begins to realize Chris's feelings for her have turned romantic, a situation complicated by the fact that she is married with a teenage daughter who has also befriended the awkward parolee. In addition to Outside In, Ms. Shelton's credits include the feature films We Go Way Back, My Effortless Brilliance, Hump Day, Your Sister's Sister, Touchy Feely, and Laggies, as well as episodes of the television series New Girl, The Mindy Project, Master of None, Casual, Fresh Off the Boat, and Love. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Ms. Shelton spoke with director Ava DuVernay about filming Outside In. During their conversation, she shares details of her actor-centric directing style, explains what she learned from speaking with incarcerated people as research for the film, and describes the editing room as a redemptive place.
Thank you, sir. Evening,
Thanks.
folks. Hi. Isn't this a good way to spend a Friday night? Really good movie. Really good movie. Hi, Lynn.
Thanks, Ava. Hi.
Gosh,
Nice
so
to
happy
see
to
ya.
be here with you.
Oh my God! Thanks for doing this.
Are you kidding? I think I have to disclose our relationship. I'm obsessed. Is basically the relationship. If you Google my name and Lynn Shelton's name, you will find many articles. It always makes me laugh, but it's true. Many articles where people say, early in my career and even now, who was the filmmaker that you most like, admire, who influenced you? And I say Lynn Shelton. I want to be the Black Lynn Shelton. I say that I've been saying that for years. Because, is this the seventh feature?
Yeah.
The seventh feature, and how rare that is for a woman director to be able to continue to make work on your own terms. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and how you've been able to maintain that. But first, let's get into this. How did this come to be? And working so closely with Jade, did it start with him, start with you?
Well, a lot of times I'll start with an actor as my muse, and I had known him. I worked a couple times as a director with his brother Mark, knew Jay as a filmmaking peer. And then he just suddenly, at the age of 40, started to act and really blew my mind because I never thought of him. Yeah, I saw him on Transparent, and I just was kind of blown away. And I told him, I think I'm going to be lightly stalking you until we work together. And he seemed open to that. And then this was an idea that I'd had the backstory of this idea, of this relationship developing over 20 years, and the high school teacher and all of that had been percolating for a while. And then when I was thinking of something I wanted to do with him, it occurred to me it would be a stretch, I thought, because this character doesn't have a lot in common with him as a, but I was curious to see, what his range was. And I hadn't seen him in a role yet that really tested that range, and I had a belief that he could tackle something like this. And so I called him and pitched him basically the setup of the movie, like everything that had happened right up to day one of the movie. And yeah, he was really into it. And then I like to involve the actor when they're involved that early on. When I get them involved that early on, I would like to involve them in the development of their own characters, so it feels like, that character could just slip on like a glove by the time we get onto set, and it invests them in the project more. And it tends to bleed back and forth between the plot, the narrative and the character development. And he had a lot of input about the narrative as well, more and more. And then we finally ended up just passing the script back and forth, so he became an official co-writer. Yeah.
But that's a little deeper than the usual kind of character building process with other actors.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it was really, it came out of his passion for it. I mean, he was so passionate about, and he got really deep into researching the process of re-entering after being in prison for that long. Just and all the different effects of that psychologically, and as well as just what it's like, with the deck sort of stacked against you, everybody preconceiving their notions of who you are, and how hard it is to get a job, just every little, thing. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask, at what point in your process did you realize, this is a co-writer relationship and not character building with the actor? I mean, when did it kind of cross that line?
Well, I mean, it was really when he asked. It was like a couple, 3 months
when
before when he said, "Could I?"
Final
He
draft?
begged me to do he asked if he could do a pass on the script, and
that would be when.
That would be when, and then at that point, I mean, it was really funny because that first draft came back, and I was like, oh. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in here. We're really different, artists. We're really strong-minded artists. So I pushed back on a lot of the stuff, but I realized a lot of the ideas were really good too. And so at that point, we just passed it back and forth, and it was like, okay, we're full on. This is a full-on collaboration.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Edie Falco is just a revelation.
A goddess.
Me. Yeah, a goddess. And I feel like I say she's a revelation. Like I have not seen her do, extraordinary work again and again, but it's like it's always fresh and there's so many new layers. Yeah. First of all, as a director, I would be a little intimidated. Edie Falco's on the set and she's doing her thing, but tell me, how did she come into the process? Did you know her before?
This was really lucky. It was Jay. She was the last sort of jewel in our crown, and I actually was able. There were a couple of other actors who at various points had been attached and then had to go off for various reasons. And so it was a little bit late in the process, and we were biting our nails a little bit. But she had worked with Jay just for a couple days, been on the same set of Landline, Gillian Robespierre's film, and he's a charming guy, So she had very warm, fuzzy feelings about him, and I think it really helped. That really helped, knowing that would be who she'd be playing with. And then she loved the script. She just said, "This is how real people talk." And somebody of her age, a woman of her age does not get offered a part like that with a lot of, sort of a deep, emotional, layered life. And she's talked about that a lot as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so they knew each other before. I wasn't aware of that because they had such
just
a chemistry.
A little bit, but it helped.
It
really helped. Yeah.
You're working with a new cinematographer here. Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
It's somebody I've known forever, though. He's been a camera operator for me.
Oh, wow.
And so long time director of photography, Ben Kasulke, who's made my first 6 films with me, was off doing other things. I interviewed a bunch of folks, but as it turned out, I'd always wanted to work with Nate because what had happened with Nate Miller, who shot this and was such a beautiful collaborator. I loved working with him, and we're actually in development on another film that we're about to make together.
I want to be the Black Lynn Shelton. She just makes them. It's like this. It's amazing.
Well, there was a big old gap between this one and the last one. It was 4 years. It was too long. I can never do that again.
Shows in between, but anyway,
got to keep busy, out of trouble. But yeah, it was. I've been wanting to. He had stopped. He hadn't worked on Laggies. I think that was the only movie he hadn't worked with me on because he had said, okay, he was making that jump. I want to be a DP now. So he had gone and put a bunch of movies under his belt, as a DP, and really. It was like, oh, it's time. Like, we're ready. Because he's one of those people, how it is when you have somebody on set with you that just makes you feel really grounded and really, and he was just always one of those people that just is I can kind of go like this, and he's just like the Buddha, just brings me down to earth. So yeah, I loved working with him.
Now that relationship is just such important is not the word. It's
Well, and he becomes like, the love scene in this film is, I don't know if I've been prouder of anything else I've ever directed. And I wish I could take more credit for it. It was really just like creating this emotionally safe space, figuring out what the choreographers be, and then just let them do it. It was mostly in one shot. And he's like, it's like a threesome. Like he's in there, because he's operating, my DP operated as well. So it's like knowing where to put that camera. And there's a few scenes like that where it's like this incredible handheld work, just the instinct of what to do with it. And oh God, yeah, it's a special thing.
That's exciting. You could tell there was something really beautiful going on. I didn't know that he had worked on your cruise before. So he's seen the evolution of Lynn Shelton, the 7 feature film career. And how would you say your approach is? Because as you look at them, I feel like there's a very kind of They're Lynn Shelton films, and yet they're blossoming and they're unfolding and they're growing with each one. So when you look back at the 7 and you go from 1 to 7, well, how would you say you've changed when you look at your work in the way that you approach it and in what you want to say?
Well, I mean, it's easiest to speak about this last one because there was this 4-year gap between, and before that it was more like a year and a half. Like I really was making them pretty often. But there was a 4-year gap between the last two, and I was on set almost constantly because of all the television I was doing in those 4 years. And it really made a huge difference. I can feel it. I can feel how much I learn every time I step onto a new set. And the quality of the shows, Glow and Love and Casual and Master of None and these, Shameless and Mad Men, these shows that I've gotten to work on have just been, I've been so blessed to be offered really great opportunities like that. And very cinematic directors of photography who all came from film and all had, and so collaborating with them, I would learn more and more, and these great actors, and not having no feeling of intimidation anymore about, working with sort of name actors or what have you. So, it was that I really noticed a difference when I stepped on the set of this film. It was really like, oh man, I have so much more in my toolkit, and just a general sense of confidence and ease. And I felt like I knew what to do with prep more. Like I was more productive. I sort of had a greater sense of how I wanted to, focus up and what I wanted to concentrate on. And I think I'd always been a little at sea and kind of like improvising before somehow and during prep. I don't know. It's hard to put exactly what my finger on about it, and I hate to choose between my children because I really do love all of my films, but I really do. I think this is my best one, Well,
that's what the critics are saying. Yeah, for sure. I just want to point out, she listed some of her films, but really, who sits before us is, and truly we can do the numbers, is the most prolific American woman director of our generation. Truly, 7 features, just to give context to, how challenging. Name American women who have done 7 features. It's one hand and it's not a whole hand, and then all the television work. In addition to that, you also have a family and a life, and you don't live in Los Angeles. I don't understand who you are and how you're making all this happen, but yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about that work balance because when you talk about stalking Jay, like I stalk you, trying to figure out how is this woman making this happen. You get to choose the films that you want to make, the television shows that you want to make, and still keep that family life, which is a challenge for many directors of all kinds. Yeah. What is your philosophy? Give us the world of Lynn Shelton, and how do you manage?
Well, it's all, you have to sort of, the time that you do have off, I would just like dive into the family. I was really lucky too because I live in Seattle, but I started spending more time over the past 3-4 years, 5 years maybe down here, mostly because of the television. I've made 7 films all in Washington State, so that helps. That I'm always up there, and have usually I've been able to edit up there every time as well too. I found a Seattle-based editor, so I'm only down here for the television work. Now sometimes that means a couple months. It can be a long stint. But, it really worked. I had a supportive spouse. I have an amazing spouse who was willing to take over as the primary caregiver. It helped that our kid was, in junior high school by the time I really started spending a lot of time away. And they are best friends, and they do fine without me. And, so that really helped a lot. And my husband and I have been together for so long that I think it actually sort of saved our relationship to have these stints away from each other because we can be autonomous and, we can just keep evolving as a couple and really appreciate being together. So for us, it's worked out. But it is hard, and you do get to these times when you feel alone or you feel isolated or you feel, it's work, it is.
Yeah, well, you make it look easy, and a lot of admiration and respect for that. One of the things that I love about this film is the way in which it talks about, one of the scourges, a scourge in our society, which I'm very passionate about, incarceration and criminalization, in a way that's wrapped in this beautiful love story. But it's also really giving people information about the way that we treat formerly incarcerated people in this country. Because you serve your time doesn't mean that you're free. So many rights taken away. It's really inhumane. the way that we expect people to re-enter society and jump right back into living a full life when we don't give them full rights. What was your preparation for getting into that? It was an idea that you had, but how did you really kind of educate yourself to that world?
Well, I've also, one of my dad's best friends is Peter Neufeld, who is a co-founder of the Innocence Project. And I've hung out a lot with him. He spent a lot of time with folks who've come out of prison. I was really nervous when he saw it in New York. I was like, God, I hope he feels like I did okay. And he really did. He said he felt like what he's seen is that a lot of guys who go in at 15, 16, 17 years old, and no matter how long they stay in prison, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years, when they come out, they're basically exactly the age they were when they went in. And he also said, another thing that some people feel like, well, he should be angry, or why isn't he angry? Or this guy seems really sort of soft for somebody who's been in prison that long. But he said, in his experience, the folks who can't manage, everybody's angry, but if you can't figure out how to deal with it, within the first couple of years of your time in prison, those are the guys who probably won't make it out. They'll keep like upping their time served because of trouble that they get into, or they'll die. So, but the folks who actually are able to somehow figure out how to deal with that and process that anger, and then navigate the world in there, they're the ones who survive and come out on the other side and can try to reintegrate. But anyway, that was encouraging. But we started by looking at documentaries. We looked at a lot of interviews with just started on YouTube, and then Jay actually sat down with some folks who had actually come out of prison. So we both did a dive, but he did an even deeper dive, and we really wanted to get that right, even though it's not what the movie is about. It really is more of that background, and it really is about the relationships and the love story. We absolutely wanted to get it just right.
Fantastic. And just to talk a little bit about, because you're known as an actor's director, and that's apparent in all your work. These performances are gorgeous. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for agreeing. She's got some thumbs up, some nods. People agree here. Can you just talk a little bit about, many directors in the room, a little bit about your work with actors and the way that you approach it? Everyone has a different. Have you changed from film to film, or have you always kind of had a way that you like to approach?
I feel like it's always basically been the same idea, and it really all came from the very first film I made was with Seattle actors. I didn't go to film school. I came out of as a solo artist out of photography school, and then got into editing because it was my marketable skill was digital editing, and then so really learned about cinematic storytelling from the editing side. And being on the set of my first feature, it was I was basically sort of commissioned to write and direct my first feature film by this nonprofit film studio in Seattle that was very short-lived, and it was extremely lucky. But being on that set was really the first time I'd really been on the production side. And I had been an actor in the theater years before, and I was really stunned by how the entire structure, the whole paradigm of how you make a film traditionally seemed like designed to obstruct the central work, which is that of the actor. Because no matter how beautiful, the lighting is and the production design and everything, if the acting and the writing doesn't work, you're kind of screwed. You don't have a movie. So I therefore then, my second film was really an experiment to see what would happen if I created just a completely performance-centered set. And I just sort of tossed all of the equipment away, and I just took little cameras. It's very Dogma 95. Like, I thought, let's just be as unobtrusive as possible. I started with the actor and said, let's build a character around you, just for you. And I used improvised dialogue, and I tried to just make it feel like a documentary. I just didn't want it to feel written. I wanted it to feel real, real, real. And I noticed that casting the crew was just as important as the cast. That everybody had to be on set, very focused on creating that emotionally safe space for creativity, because it's a huge risk. Everybody is risking creatively on set, and you want them to all feel respected and valued. And like, there's this, because you're going to fall down, you're going to fail, and if you're too afraid that you're going to be judged, it's not going to work. So yes, and making sure that actors have time to spend time with each other and get comfortable with me, building trust, and just it's all about emotional safety.
So your background was in editing.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
first as
photography,
an
editing.
actor, then first as a theater actor, then as a photographer, and then as an editor for a long time. Yeah.
So are you a director who loves the?
Oh my God, I love it.
Because they're
I'm in
they're
there.
two tribes.
Oh, I know.
There are two tribes.
I don't know. I can't. I know. I didn't even. I was like, really? There are people who just will. Like just pop in and then
know,
leave. I'm in there the whole time. It's like two-headed monsters. Are you like that too?
No, my editor and I sit
Yeah.
like shoulder
yeah.
to shoulder. Yes, I'm breathing in his ear. Like,
I know.
look at
I
that.
love working with actors so much, but I don't know. The edit. I think
beautiful
editing
time.
might be. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so redemptive. What a beautiful redemptive place. I can't tell you how much we cut out of this and rearranged stuff and took wholesale things out and then like, well, what if we put it back in just this version of it? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's amazing. So much
fun. So that process, have you worked with the same editor for many years? Or
I've worked, Nat Sanders, who also did Moonlight, and Barry Jenkins' first film. He and I worked together 3 times. He did Hump Day, Your Sister's Sister, and Laggies, and was not available for this film. But I was able to work with a woman named Celia Beasley, who is based in Seattle and had worked with my friend Megan Griffiths a couple of times, and she's just spectacular. So it was a new editor this time, but she had been a friend, so it was sort of somebody I'd been like, oh, we could finally get to work together. It was great. Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So how can folks here support the film? I mean, tell us when it's coming out. This looks like a crowd that likes to stay on Twitter and Instagram. I can tell. You guys can barely keep your phones in your pocket. But you never know.
Telling your friends,
Tell us how to get more
It's
folks.
kind of had its theatrical run. I mean, it was at the Lemley NoHo. It was at the Quad Cinema for a couple weeks. They held it for an extra week. And Seattle, Portland, Eugene, like just all around. Chicago, it was in Philadelphia. Much more than I thought. I thought it was just going to be New York and LA,
nice
so
run.
I feel very lucky. And it's now available on Amazon and iTunes and I think pay-per-view and somebody saw it on an airplane, I think, available to buy. But it'll be on Netflix June 1st. Okay. So it'll, be one of those long tail things. But please spread the word however you can, even if it's just telling buddies and family, if you enjoyed it, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I really feel like these performances are ones that we should be talking about when we get into those year-end conversations about beautiful performances. And so often for films like this that are indie and smaller, it takes people who are passionate about it to really get that moving. So I'm passionate about the film. I'm passionate about Lynn Shelton. If you are too, please spread the word about Outside In. And
Thanks,
thank you so
Ava.
much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So fantastic.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. In the coming weeks, we'll hear from directors Jay Chandrasekhar and Paul Schrader, so be sure to click subscribe so you won't miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.